Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By. Today's format is going to be a bit different. Instead, we are going to be doing a roundtable discussion about the recent news of CrossFit HQ's general manager of sport, Justin Bergh, leaving the company and Dave Castro stepping in as the leader of the sports team. This comes just 6 weeks ahead of the Noble CrossFit Games. Here to talk about the subject matter is CrossFit Games athlete with Team East Nashville proven, Tim Paulson. CrossFit Games team athlete, Dex Hopkins. Head coach of Underdogs Athletics, Justin Kotler. An 8-time CrossFit Games athlete and affiliate owner of NC Fit, Jason Kalipa. All right, so right off the bat, we're just going to go around the horn and we are going to talk about initial thoughts of this news coming. We can just start with you, Tim. What are your initial thoughts on this?
I think on the whole, I like it. I think there was a lot of good things that were happening under Dave, just from like years at the games in kind of under both like leadership structures. And obviously that's not like a knock on Boz or anything like that, or the team that was there. I think there was just kind of this like militaristic attention to detail under Dave that I think I appreciated personally. And I think gave a nice little vibe to certain things. And so I think like kind of having that in place is good. Obviously everyone, there was drawbacks at the games when Castro was there, when he wasn't, so it's like there's a whole hodgepodge of things that can go on. But I think on the whole, having someone like Dave around is probably a good thing.
Dex, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm in the same boat. I think having the head of the snake feel like the head of a snake as far as sport is concerned is great. I think, like Timmy's saying, a lot of things where you knew exactly what they were. They're very clear. It didn't feel like, it sounds like derogatory, but like, somebody was a puppet saying a list of things they gave them. Things were very clear. They were never very vague under Dave. It was very straightforward, whether you liked it or not. It was very black and white with Dave. And so in that sense, I'm happy to see him back. I'm interested to see where it goes with kind of another new group of people that he'll be working with. So I'm on the fence, man. I think it could be very good, but, apprehensive at the same time.
Justin, typically with any subject matter, you're never on the fence. You're on one side or another. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing.
Do it.
I'm pretty concerned about it, to be perfectly honest. I think with Dave, there was a culture of fear. I think he was judge, jury, and executioner. I think most of the athletes were terrified to bring up any critiques or criticisms for fear of being excommunicated. I am not a huge fan of this decision, and I hope that Dave has grown a little bit, because I think what we're unfortunately looking at is a step backwards in terms of communication and growth of the sport. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but I would think on the whole that the majority of athletes, at least that I've spoken to, are not extremely happy about this. I know that they're concerned about the growth of the sport. I think they're concerned about having an open line of communication with HQ, Games HQ. And, say what you will about Justin Bergh, but I never was asked to sit down and give my opinion about the sport or about changes in the sport that need to be made. In fact, if I made any type of statement about that, I was blocked on Instagram or had a fear of being excommunicated. So at the end of the day, I'm very concerned about this, to be honest.
Jason, we'll get to you in just a second, but I'm curious, since Tim and Dex, you are both athletes that are still in the mix. Do you get a similar feel or vibe, maybe not personally from either of you, but maybe other athletes that you've spoken with when it comes to the culture surrounding Dave being part of the games team?
Me personally, no. I've never had anything but good interactions with Dave, throughout the years. So I don't have anything personal to say. I will say that, what Justin's referencing, I have heard people express that concern before. It's not, I don't think it's maybe a huge secret that, I think certain athletes felt like they were maybe on the wrong side with Dave, and that felt like obviously not a good side to be on. Yeah, like I said, personally, no, but I have heard some people, express that concern.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Not even thinking about like the lines of communication stuff Justin's talking about. That gets filed under the worry thing for me and the apprehension. I did like Justin said, being able to voice opinions without repercussion or having to fear that is a thing. Because I think we get caught up in like the villain character Dave was, the guy that shows up at the open announcement and does the dance for everybody. But most of my friends and people are people that interact with Dave on the education side. And when Dave left, it's like, those people on seminar staff kind of bow at the foot of Dave and Nicole Carroll. Like, it's just, that's the way I knew him, because I never had, I've always only done team. Timmy, Jason, Justin's coached some individual athletes. I've never had any one-on-one interaction. So it was just through the sport and through people that are involved with it, that are friends. But yeah, man, that is a big point, is having that open line of communication and fear and kind of repercussion for voicing your opinion. When everybody, me, Justin, anybody involved in it like that as a coach or an athlete, it's only because you love the sport and you want to see it grow and in the right way and at the right speed. And so that is a concern.
Jason, we know that Dave recently has been kind of in charge or spearheading the affiliate growth, and as somebody that owns an affiliate, do you think that was the right position for Dave, or that moving back into the game side of things is actually where we'll be able to see more growth with CrossFit as a whole?
I actually think his current role was auxiliary revenue streams, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he was working on the Army. He was working on several different like additional revenue streams for the company. I know he was supporting affiliates, but I believe Austin is currently like head of affiliate growth. But in either way, it doesn't matter. I think that because HQ chose to continue to keep Dave on board, I think this is a natural fit for him. So I want to address Justin's comments. So Dave and I have a long relationship, very long relationship. First met him in 2007, and I worked for CrossFit HQ. So he was my boss for seminars. I also competed at the CrossFit Games with him 8 separate times as an individual. So we've gone through a lot together. And at the time, I don't think I realized what he was bringing to the sport until time went on and I realized what he was bringing to the sport. So here's what I mean by that. Justin has been a part of the sport for a really long time. He obviously was kind of working with Dave or below Dave, and then he took over at some point. I think that Dave brought a energy to the sport, although I understand Justin's perspective on the athletes. And I definitely have seen some of that, and I've been a part of a lot of that, and there's definitely growth there for sure. I do think that the sport needs someone like Dave. I do. I feel like the sport, when I would watch back on these open announcements, or I was a part of countless open announcements, it used to drive me nuts on the way Dave would do it. He would make it so dramatic and whatever. It used to drive me crazy. But looking back on it, that was part of the sport that became invigorating for the spectators. And ultimately, if we want the sport to grow, I think a few things need to happen. But I think there's a reason why, like, there is no villains in CrossFit. There's no personalities that are standing out. And should that be the athletes? Yeah, I think that would bring some more spectators. But if that's Dave and he could bring a spectator awareness to the sport, I think it's going to be good for the sport overall. We need new eyes and more eyes on the sport. And I think Dave, in hindsight, looking back on where the sport was and how he grew it, I actually think people were attracted to that. They might not have liked him, but they were attracted to that. And I think that's part of what he's going to be able to bring back.
Justin, you think you're like the issue is like checks and balances to you? Like, you think like, I fully understand like the timeline for communication between anybody at HQ. Like, if I send an email, especially during the season, of anything that has any kind of weight to it, I mean, that's whether you want to call it dragging feet or just like their processes or whatever they are system wise. Do you think like it's a checks and balances thing of like him being the absolute, like you said, judge, jury, executioner? Like, is that what needs to be in place while he comes back?
Yeah, I think that my concern is just that, is that any opinions that anyone has that don't align with Dave's, in my history that I've had with him and the people that I know that are close to me and a lot of the athletes that I know that are concerned about this, is that, if your opinions didn't align, you were made to feel less than. And I, and listen, I have had in the last few years, specifically at the games in the bubble when I was there coaching Carrie, and there were a few of us there, I had some very good interactions with Dave, and I have no problems with Dave personally. Like I really don't. I think that, I get along fine with him. My concern is more him in the power position. And my concern is that a lot of the opinions or a lot of the, a lot of things that I think we need to do to drive the sport, there's just not, he's never really had a lot of open-mindedness. I don't know if I'm making up a word, but at the end of the day, I do understand what Jason is saying. He kind of has that Dana White feel to him, right? Like in MMA. Exactly. And I understand he's a character. I get it. I get it. He's a character. I am more concerned about people not feeling like they can express their opinions without repercussions. And that should not be the way that it is at all, especially at this point. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of things that need to improve in this sport. And one person is not going to have all those ideas.
Right. And Justin, just real quick on that note, when Dave was running the game solely, right, he started it from his ranch and grew it. And at the time, Greg didn't really have an interest too much in the sport. That's pretty common knowledge. Right. He was kind of, he wanted to focus on other things, and Dave really built the sport. He was single-handedly kind of on his own journey. There's no one holding him accountable as far as right. But now things are different, and you have Dawn, a new CEO. You have a board of directors. There are checks and balances associated with the overall system that I think will actually be a pleasant adjustment, meaning you could allow Dave to be Dave, and Dave needs to be Dave, frankly, to really, I think, catapult the sport. I think there's a lot of things that need to happen to catapult the sport. I have, opinions on this, but prior to today, in his role, there was no one holding him accountable. Now there will be, and I think that balance will actually be instrumental in the success of the overall sport.
Well, and I'm curious because just to kind of go through the timeline is 18 months ago, that's when Dave originally got fired. Around a year after that, that's when CrossFit decided to bring him back, but in a very different role. Now, just a month before the games, we're seeing him back on the games team without having all of the information out there yet. Do you guys feel like CrossFit will do maybe a better job or a more well-rounded job of kind of putting a team together that will allow for more open communication and a style of play where questions can be answered, Justin, or asked, and not with all of this pushback that you're kind of speaking to?
I mean, I think so. Like, personally, I would, just from a pure business standpoint, I think CrossFit has had a lot of good growth in the last couple of years from like the game side, the athlete side. Like, there's been some really good things that have happened. Again, like opening up lines of communication, an actual kind of feedback loop happening. And from what I know of Dave personally, again, like he's not my best friend or anything, but it's like people have always said that, especially on the seminar side, like he is open to those lines of communication. So maybe now that those things are kind of in place, we'll see, like that. I mean, maybe see Dave make really good use of them. And again, I think as a leader and as someone who can kind of hold people accountable and move things forward, I think Dave is very well suited to do those things. So, I mean, hopefully, yeah, I mean, maybe this is a little rosy-eyed glasses, but, since some of those systems are in place, hopefully he sees the value in them and is able to kind of help perpetuate them and maybe even refine them a little bit, to make them a little bit more direct and actionable rather than, talking to some friends, whether over at the PFAA or anything like that, like feeling like you're kind of, you're pedaling a bike with a broken chain sometimes. Like maybe there's actually a first gear on that bike, like, and things will kind of move a little bit quicker in some respects.
What are the thoughts on timing of this only happening a month before the CrossFit Games?
Well, just when Don became CEO, like what, 9 months ago, right? 8 months ago, he had a lot of changes that needed to occur. I still don't think all of those changes have occurred, But I think this was probably one of the changes that maybe he had outlined early on, that maybe there needed to be an adjustment made with Justin. And it just took a while to probably make that decision happen. The timing a month before the game, I don't think is ideal, because I imagine a lot of things are already set in stone. That being said, like, we also don't know the backstory. Like, why was Justin let go now, or why did they part ways now, and not 2 months ago or after the games? And it might have been an internal thing where, you know, they just didn't see eye to eye on cost of the games, or, you know, all kinds of factors, right? Because we you know, we don't have insight. You know, if you look at semifinals and the way they broadcasted some of the workouts, not others, how they did certain things, maybe they wanted to try something new for the games. Justin wasn't on board. Maybe it just didn't see eye to eye. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah,
That's the thing to me is, oh, go ahead, Justin.
The thing that I was going to say, and, you know, I think for me, it all comes back to what's best for the athletes and how do we drive this forward? And, you know, I think my concern about this is that I'm not sure that the athlete's best interest have always been in mind with the previous regime, which is now the current regime. And so I think that's a major concern for me. And I think at the end of the day that the power still lies in the hands of the athletes. And I think that there are certain changes that have to be made that, you know, you know, honestly, behind the scenes, there's been some meetings and things like that we're working on trying to bring to the forefront. And hopefully that's still going to occur. And, you know, I think now, though, and, you know, from my history of what, you know, Dave kind of was, and I don't know, you know, maybe still is, I think that, you know, that some of those plans will now be met with more backlash, and that's, you know, that is what it is. You know, I hope that I'm wrong, to be perfectly honest with you, because, you know, I certainly do understand in some respects, you know, that yes, CrossFit absolutely does need a villain. I'm not sure that villain needs to be the GM of the sport. I think that if we did it the right way, and like I've spoken about before, you know, we had some type of Drive to Survive reality show where we could get in the camps and actually see, there are plenty of villains out there, trust me. And it would be very, very interesting for people to see, you know, behind the scenes, a lot of the interaction between the athletes and the drama. And that's really what it should be. You know, what I'm hoping now is that we're not looking at this between Games HQ and some of the changes that coaches and athletes are hoping that are made to the sport, because of ego, which I have always felt that it's been. And so that's my fear. And I'm, you know, at this point, I'm, you know, I might be, like I said, I might be out there on my own with this feeling, but I know what I felt in the past, and I'm very curious to see what happens.
That's how I feel about it. Like, I remember, you know, and like Jason's talking about, I remember watching those things when I first got into it, like just the circus that was, like, Jason versus Rich, Sam versus, you know, whoever she went against that year. But like, those things are what drew me in as an athlete, that turned into me being a coach, career coach, and, like, you know, the only job I've had as an adult. But I wonder if Justin's stepping away, if it's a conflict like you're talking about, Justin, or if it's a matter of having players in a different position than what they actually play, right? Like, I don't want to have a guy that plays left tackle playing quarterback. Play left tackle. Be the best one you can be. So maybe if it's people going into the right spot and doing their max thing, him stepping away is a bigger, you know, I would be interested to see the details of that, because like Jason said, we don't have all the insight. But I mean, I remember, like, how big a deal Tony Budding was in the, you know, in the whole mix. And then all of a sudden he's out, right? And now, you know, and Justin had a big role in the things with all that. But like, every time somebody just hard cuts like that, I feel like there's a deeper issue. And I feel like a lot of stuff got dumped in a lot of those people's laps, and they made the best that they could out of it as far as, like, their role. You know, Justin getting dumped into a bigger role where traditionally he's been the guy behind the scenes kind of making moves, and they let Dave be that figurehead and the face that either takes the heat, starts the heat, or he's just the character to kind of to drive the visual. And then, you know, we know him, like Justin's saying, to be kind of harsh with the feedback stuff. So I'm hopeful, man, just like Justin's saying. Like, I hope that it is like a growth thing, and everybody's able to step into a role that they are confident to play, and they want to play that to the best of their ability, and like, it's one they're comfortable in, so we can push this thing along.
And again, with not that many details still out, let's just go again around the horn with what is one thing that each of you want to see from Dave in this new position. We'll actually go backwards now. Let's start with you, Jason.
Yeah, I also just want to acknowledge real quick that it has been some time since Dave was let go of his position. And I think just like anybody, there's growth that comes through adversity. And I think that at least like, you know, I see Dave pretty regularly, and I think that he's grown just like I've grown, and everybody, you know, hopefully listening has grown and evolved. And I think he's going to bring a different perspective, and I hope he does. You know, what I would say is my major takeaway is that I agree with Justin. We want to look out for the athletes. And the best way, in my opinion, to look out for the athletes, and this is truly the way I feel, is that we need to grow the sport while also keeping them safe. So we need to make sure the athletes are safe. There's no question there, right? If there's injury of, you know, whatever, that's not acceptable. However, we need to make sure the sport grows. And right now, just looking at it, I feel like it's the same people are going back to the sport. We need to be able to get to the people that are on the bubble who are slightly interested. Maybe they've heard of CrossFit, but now we've got to be able to pull them into gyms, pull them into watching it. And I think that Dave will be thinking through that lens, which will ultimately be good for the athletes, because if the sport doesn't grow, the money just won't be there.
Justin.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, this was a bomb that was dropped on us today. And whether you think about it positively or negatively, I mean, it's obviously huge news. I mean, Dave is a massive personality, right? And you know, what I'm hoping is, like Jason just said, I'm really hoping that there's been some growth there. And I'm hoping that the athletes will still have a seat at the table to be able to give their opinions on things, you know, and I also hope that that's the case for coaches and managers and people who want to see this sport move forward. All of us need to work symbiotically to move this thing forward. And I have felt in the past that with Dave in charge, that there was a lot of butting heads, and I felt like it was his way or the highway. And I'm hoping that there's a little more room for communication there, because at the end of the day, we all want to see the same thing. I want to see this fucking thing take off and be huge for everyone and have massive money-making opportunities for athletes and coaches and managers and this thing and that thing. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to see this be huge. And I'm hoping that, you know, he's willing to get in a room and listen sometimes and not just talk. And that's what I've seen in the past.
Dex, what do you want to see from Dave?
Oh man, I want to see old Dave character, new Dave systems. Jason's got me reminiscing about all these things now, but that literally was like one of my favorite things. I mean, rallying your affiliate to watch Thursday nights, have a coach or somebody go head to head during open announcements. I think letting those things go, like in a sanctional year and all the stuff we've seen between that era and this one, has kind of slowed traction as far as like Jason's talking about pulling people in. And you know, we've all been in affiliates and seen that firsthand. So I think getting back to those things with some new approaches, new softness, new ability to receive things from athletes, coaches, and all that thing, and value every part of the puzzle, right? Because we're all in it, man. Like Justin's talking about, athletically coaching. We all want to do it as a career, whether that's athletic or coaching and all that. And those things can't be available if we're not all pushing this rock uphill together. And so, yeah, man, I agree with things Justin said. Now I'm just hardcore reminiscing about all the old times, Jason. So.
Hey, remember the Paris one where he was remember the one where he was in Paris and he was drinking red wine and wearing a suit?
And he had his hair slicked back. Yeah,
dude. And he did a muscle up, completely cold, just walked in at like 2 o'clock in the morning with wine in his hand.
Yes. Oh man. Hey, can I just share a quick note on Dave? Never mind.
Go for it, Jason. And then we'll let Tim wrap us up.
It's like 2010, 2011. It was the first ever CrossFit Games Open ever. And it was me and Chris Clever. What year was it, Justin?
11.
Okay. 11, yeah. And Chris Clever and I got invited to the Home Depot Center, and we were a part of if first open announcements. I can't remember exactly which one it was. And so we show up there and we arrive at the Home Depot Center. He really wanted to do it underneath the lights. It was like super important to him. And so we got there at like 6 a.m. and he would not tell us the event. until 3 minutes when everybody else heard it. He would not tell us. We were with him all day long, but he stayed true to the fact that he didn't want us to know, didn't have any advantage. And he gave it to us like 3 minutes in advance. It was just me. He was judging me and Boz was judging Chris Clever. It was just the four of us. That's it. But the fact that even back then, like he was so dedicated to like making sure it was all consistent and he wanted to act those like antics. Like he wanted it to be shown on camera how I felt immediately. It's just a fond memory of mine, man, being on the Home Depot Center, lights were on, just the four of us. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent. It's just like we had no music, no nothing. It was just like, sorry, I guess you just had to be there. You had to be there. Sorry.
That's why we normally give Jason a shot clock to stay within a window of time.
My bad.
I love it.
Always great stories, though. Great stories. All right, Tim, final thoughts.
I mean, these guys have already said a lot of really valuable things, I think. And kind of for me personally, I guess what I'm excited to potentially see is what Dave can do under leadership that is excited about the games and sees the value in the games as an asset to the CrossFit community. Like personally, we own an affiliate. I've been coaching classes for coming up on 11 years now. I've been an athlete in the sport for a long time. I'm the leader of a smallish community here in the middle of nowhere in New York. So like there's a lot of value and there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of crossover good that can be done. And I think just like continuing to really lean into that, really embrace that, how all these kind of three facets of the sport, like the education, the coaching, the community side of it, the affiliate side of it, and the athletes, like how we can all kind of, I guess, learn, grow together and just kind of see value in each pursuit and kind of understand what they can bring to the table. And I think Dave has always had a really good appreciation for that, but there wasn't necessarily the support from the top, kind of in his past regimes to be able to really kind of run with it. So I guess I'm hopeful that, with a supportive, kind of leadership and things like that, that the games will, maybe hit the runway that we've all been kind of hoping that it will for a long time now.
Tim, Dex, Jason, Justin, thank you guys as always. Great insight on the topic for our roundtable discussion episode of Death By. We have more on our YouTube channel from Talking Elite Fitness. You'll find an episode with myself, Tommy Marquez, Sean Woodland, and Brian Friend talking deeper into the subject matter. And as we learn more information, make sure you guys stay tuned with us as this conversation progresses. We will continue to update you. From everybody here at Talking Elite Fitness, I'm Lauren Kalil, and we'll see you next time.